Hi, my name is Soile, and you're listening to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. So today we're going to talk about the 13th episode of season 16, Striking a Balance. Personally, I don't really know what to think about this episode. There were things that I liked, but there were also things that I didn't like, and some parts confused me. So I'm really eager to get into your comments to see what your guys' thoughts were, because I feel like whenever I read those, I have a better understanding of the episode because it deepens the experience for me too. But before we go into your comments, here are some quick thoughts from me. One of the things I noticed during watching this episode, and then especially after watching this episode, that it was kind of different Heartland episode when it comes to locations and what happens in the episode. Because when you think about it, we hardly saw Heartland. We were in Kananaskis with Tim, Jessica, and Shane, and then in Fairfield with Lisa, Amy, and Edwin. And of course, there were some scenes at Heartland, and then there was Maggie, so it wasn't all kind of unusual. But it just felt like whenever that type of thing happens, it's kind of like, oh, what show am I watching? Because I'm just so used to seeing the familiar places. But still, I didn't mind it. It does bring this freshness to the show because it's still the same characters, and what I always want to see is whenever they go away, like what happens. So this was kind of what the episode provided for me. I did like how heavily Lisa was involved in this episode. And while I say that, it also feels weird because you would think that the last couple of episodes would have been kind of like that as well. But now it's kind of like, oh, so she can be a main character, but for some reason she isn't allowed often. So it's always kind of like, okay, that's interesting that they chose to do a heavy Lisa episode about this topic. Kind of like when there was that whole cloning thing happening. I don't know, maybe it's just my preference, but I would have rather have seen Lisa talk to Chag about his accident and all that than this. That being said, I did enjoy seeing her relationship with her horse, Platinum Bow. At first I was kind of like, okay, this seems kind of silly storyline, but at the same time, maybe in a way, I did end up liking that it actually gave kind of a bookend to her story with the horse. And it was nice to see Lisa riding. It's something we rarely get to see. And I did find the scene where she was brushing Platinum Bow and kind of gets upset and then leaves, and the horse pokes his head behind the corner to see where Elise is going. I did find that really cute. I don't know if it's because I don't know enough about horses, but I wasn't sure if this storyline was realistic. I know this is something dogs especially can do, fake an injury to get attention or get their way. So maybe it's possible, and I just didn't know about it. But yeah, it definitely felt like an interesting choice given the journey Elise has been this season. But at the same time, it was a story about her relationship with the horse that has given her a bit of a grief, but also a lot of happiness. So yeah, I guess it wasn't for vain. As for Amy's story in this episode, I felt like she was kind of in the background, but also not, which sounds kind of weird, but don't know how else to explain that. I was thinking that the storyline with Edwin would just be kind of like that he was somehow sketchy and she would find something out about him, but it turned out to be kind of, dare I say, hallmarky thing, because when Libby got home earlier in the episode and was like, I have this new best friend, Rebecca, and she basically invited her and her mom over, I was like, okay, so who is this mother? Because it's obvious that they're trying to do something, but I just couldn't figure out at first, like, who is this going to be? Because there's no woman in this episode that would make sense. But then it turned out that the mother couldn't make it, so Edwin, the father, came with Rebecca to Heartland, which is exactly the kind of hallmarky twist those movies usually have. And I just wasn't sure how to feel about those scenes, because sure, it could just be Amy having this kind of a different side to his perspective and then eventually understanding where he's coming from. But I also got like romantic vibes, and I don't know if that was just me, but just somehow, especially when they were doing the rock coloring thing at Heartland, and then when you think about how Amy usually connects with someone romantically, it's usually exactly this type of situation. Like the guy is somehow arrogant or difficult, and she feels like he's not getting her. He's not even trying to understand her and all that. So it could fit in that category. But overall, I would say this episode gave me the same feeling when Amy went on that double date with Lou and Fred and then Fred's brother. And it feels like it's Bachelor Amy Fleming all over again. And in the last episode, we got this like whole thing with Amy slowly moving forward, but I expected the next phase to last a little longer. And so I don't know if I'm just reading it wrong or if this is where they're going, but it made me a little bit uncomfortable. So that is one of the things I didn't particularly like in this episode, especially when we got Caleb, who didn't really have a lot of lines, but like 50% of his lines were about Amy. And then in the barn, at the end of the episode, there was kind of this moment where he invited her to come along to the family reunion, which is like, okay. But then there was all this like, oh, you're so amazing, like, you're the best, and strange atmosphere and looks. So I was like, oh my God, they better not do this, because it just, like I think I've expressed before, I'm not a fan of the idea of Caleb and Amy getting together. So I hope I'm just reading it wrong and it's just like two friends like hanging out and kind of cheering each other on. But then at the end of the episode, when Amy, Jack, and Katie are on the stage, and the camera was on Amy a lot, and she was kind of looking around, and the camera didn't really show who she was looking or where she was looking. So I was like holding my breath, like having this fear that it would somehow stop at Caleb, like close up and show us that they're sharing this some kind of long look and she's singing to him or something. So I was really afraid that they would do something like that, but thankfully they didn't. But I hate this feeling. That's all I'm gonna say about Amy. As for Katie and Lou's situation, I was kind of like, okay, are they backpedaling with the storyline, saying Katie was basically arranging strike to somewhat annoy her mother, but you know, she had other reasons too. But I think maybe it was needed for Lou to kind of change her approach with her, because up until now she's been kind of trying this soft approach, like understanding and like trying to kind of slowly move closer to her. But then Katie has been rejecting her throughout the season. But now Katie being part of something like this, and then Lou having all this like stress and, you know, weight on her, it kind of offered this release in a different approach, because we had this scene at Heartland when Katie's eating breakfast and she's kind of taunting Lou, and Lou's like, you know what? And she explains what she's going through, and then Katie listens to what she's saying, but kind of doesn't know how to react to that in that moment. And then later on, we have that talk with Jack and Katie, or did that happen before that? Either way, we have that to kind of move that forward. And then, obviously what happened with Lisa last episode, and eventually the radio show thing with Lou, like kind of saying how she feels, and Katie having basically no choice but to listen. And she chose to listen. So it allowed her to hear her mother's side, and then eventually kind of batch up that drift between them. So I really like that storyline, and I'm happy that it seems like they're somewhat okay before Georgie comes back in the next episode. Yeah, I was really glad about that, and kind of the change in the approach to that storyline, because it's been needing that different level. So I'm glad we finally got that. That being said, I felt like I was somehow missing half the episode, because we had this like moment between Jack and Katie where they're singing, and it's like all cute and adorable. And then we have the Jack storyline with him kind of resisting performing to another audience besides his family. But then somehow when we got to the bar, I was expecting there to be some kind of big moment with Katie, but she was basically just a background singer, which, okay, if Bay felt uncomfortable with singing, like that's totally fine. But I felt like that should have been kind of Katie's moment to let go all of the things she's been through this season, and use the song as a therapy in a way to move forward and kind of wrap this whole arc into a package she's ready to give up. Like maybe even having Logan there for some random reason, and then sort of realizing, like, you know what? I'm over him. Like, good for him for having a possible girlfriend. Maybe I feel a little silly about all of it, but at the same time, it brought me this song, and I'm performing here with my Gigi, and it's like this level up to becoming more mature because of all of that experience. Like maybe even showing a connection between her and Lou, like Lou looking directly at her when she's on stage and feeling kind of proud, and Katie feeling like it's okay for her mother to see her this vulnerable, and just sort of trust that connection between them. But then somehow Amy was involved. Like, where when did they rehearse all of that? It seemed like Amy had no clue that was going on. We know that Amber is a great singer and all that, but I just felt like Amy sort of stole that moment from Katie, which is like, I don't know, it just really bumped me out, because I felt like this was kind of the ending for Katie's big storyline this season. So that really made me feel bad for Katie, and sort of for Bay too, because I really wanted to see that moment, and I feel like she was left in the shadows. So I don't know. As good as a singer Amber is, and therefore Amy, it just wasn't her moment, and she wasn't needed, and it felt misplaced. She's had her moments, and I wanted this to be Katie's moment, but I guess not. And speaking of Jack, I felt like his storyline was kind of random. I did like seeing him perform and kind of take a step forward, but I can't deny that I felt disappointed that he was all okay and the accident left no mark on him. Not that I wanted anything too serious to happen, but just, something. I do like whenever they show those kind of day-to-day things happening at Heartland, like Jack and Caleb cleaning the tag. I feel like that adds to the realism and offers this kind of relatable stage for their scenes. I don't know, Jack felt like an afterthought, and Caleb was basically just a plot tool to push Jack forward, to highlight Amy. I didn't mind hearing about the struggle with the divorce. I just feel like it was kind of there, and it didn't really go anywhere. So I would have wanted to see more of that. I don't know if we'll see more of that in the next episode. I feel like that's the last episode for Caleb this season. So I don't really know what to think about his storyline. I think it could be good, but I don't know if they're willing to do something with that or if that's just something that they kind of throw at him to give him something while he's supporting the other characters. Yeah, Jack and Caleb felt like afterthoughts. I guess I have to see the whole season to kind of see if that had a bigger meaning to it than it seemed like in the moment. As for what was going on with Tim and Shane and Jessica, I really like that. I know it was kind of a small storyline, but I think it was nice to see Shane again and how Tim's moving forward with that relationship and how, Jessica feels about being in the middle of it and supporting Tim and all that. I think it was a great storyline. The one problem I have with it is that it makes me want to see more of Shane and sort of know where he's at. I mean, we hear all these things that he's doing, but with just him meeting Tim in restaurants and on the street in art galleries and all that, we don't really see much of him. We just hear a lot about him. So I would prefer if we would somehow see him more involved and not just kind of passive telling his story. I mean, I understand that when it comes to meetings like this, it's sort of how it goes, but I just wish we would see more of Shane and more of some type of involvement with the rest of the family. And I was hoping that we would get a scene with Shane and Jessica because it was very brief in the last episode they were in. So even that small little moment was really nice to see, them hugging and Jessica kind of explaining to Shane what Tim was feeling but was too afraid to say to him. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, obviously we don't know what the future of the show is at this point, but it would be so nice to see Tim attend Shane's wedding, maybe even see Miranda again, or I don't know. I just feel like since we really don't know anything about Tim's family outside the Heartland family, it's kind of the least they could do with us. Show that those characters and those relationships weren't just like this random thing in the past, that they are something that mean something to Tim and make him feel certain things, especially like Miranda and how things left with her and how that relationship as a like biological mother and father and the son and then the new spouses could work. I really wish we could see that, but we don't really know what's going to happen in the future, but yeah, it just made me really want to see more. Now on to your comments. HL Horses said, I actually really enjoyed this episode. It was really nice to see so much Lisa and to see Amy and Lisa working together without butting heads. I feel whenever a horse is involved, they always seem to butt heads, sometimes without one to. I love seeing Fairfield and the business side of Lisa. She would be a very intimidating boss. I also like seeing Lisa hands-on with the horse in riding because we never see that. I guess this is as close as we are going to get for Lisa to have her own horse since Cinders is in the well. When Bo peeked his head out to watch Lisa, I thought that was cute. It was also nice seeing the Fairfield office and Lisa actually using it. We didn't get a lot of Jisa in this episode, but the barn scene with both of them was nice as it showed how well they know each other. I feel like Lisa is never in the barn. It was also really nice to see Shane again because I thought it was going to be a one and done episode. Tim in that uniform and Jessica's reaction was priceless. Am I the only one who was confused as to what squash is? I literally thought they were talking about the food for half the episode. Also, Tim saying he's a multifaceted athlete was hilarious. Their conversation at the table was really nice, but I was hoping that since they mentioned Jack, they would mention Amy and Lou, his sisters. I felt really bad for Tim when Shane didn't invite him, and he was just so sad when Jessica was comforting him. It was nice to see him get invited eventually. As for the Lou and Katie stuff, I'm really glad they made up because it was drawn out too long. I did think that Katie had a point, but she should have done something else than go on strike. And I can't believe we actually saw the other staff at Maggie's actually talk. Even the cook. Rick working at Maggie's was pretty funny, and Rick's reaction to finding out about the baby was so well done. Good job, Aiden. Now that we know it's a girl, it further confirms our suspicions about Cece. I did like Lou being honest at the radio show, and I liked her finally giving Katie a talking to and saying her real thoughts about their situation. I love that they introduced a friend for Lindy, and when they mentioned the mom coming too, I was excited for Amy to have a friend finally. But I was definitely not expecting Edwin to be the dad. I actually did like Edwin's character, and I might be reading too much into things, but I see a potential pairing with Amy and Edwin just by their interactions and how the writers set it up. I mean, the episode right after she takes her rings off, he's at the house and has a little girl too, and he's divorced. I think I ship it. I did really like the scene in the house with them and them bonding. I feel like he will be back because he never got his full story, and his Olympic writing connects with Georgie coming back next episode. I also did enjoy what they ended up doing with the song, as it was more catchy than before. I wasn't expecting Amy to sing, just Jack and Katie maybe having a solo, but I didn't mind it. I loved seeing Jack on stage again, and that the lead singer was the daughter of someone in Lindy's band. I enjoyed that whole ending scene with the family all there. However, please, please, Heartland writers, don't do what you sort of implied with Amy and Caleb at the end of the episode. Please don't. All the fans beg of you. Looking forward to next week. Yeah, I really found that scene with Tim, that athlete year funny, and the way Jessica reacted was just like perfect. It's sort of funny, like ever since season 14, we've been seeing Tim going out of his comfort zone for people he cares about or he's interested in. So it provides really funny scenes with him, and I'm not complaining. And yeah, I also love seeing that Rick and Carl are moving forward with the adoption process. And yeah, I do think that the baby is going to be Cece, who is Michelle's baby. So it's kind of a nice little family thing behind the scenes as well, because I know that Aiden and Michelle are very close. So it's going to be nice to see Cece's debut in the finale. Then Nina's comment. I love seeing Lisa write again. Probably my favorite part of the episode, but overall I found it a bit dull. Shane and Tim's storyline carried the episode for me, but I wish he would come back to Heartland and see everyone. I'm dying for that family reunion. Also glad that Katie and Lou seem to be on the mend, though I hope Katie struggles with who she wants to be and comparing herself to Georgie will be addressed. I won't hold my breath though. Did anyone else call that the stable manager, who just happens to have similar philosophies about horses to Amy's and just happens to be attractive, was also going to be a single parent? When he walked in with Rebecca, all I could think was, here we go. Are we in for an enemies to lovers storyline here? It was an okay episode. I think the writers ultimately backed themselves into a corner after Robert passed by not delaying the season. I think we are seeing some slower, less interesting episodes as a result of the original plot lines being rewritten, which is sad. I'd love to know what almost was, even though I'm sure we won't. Still, it is what it is, and I'm excited to see how they close up the season. Then Heartland Lisa BFC said, I felt for Tim at first in this episode, but did call Shane not inviting Tim to his wedding was something about Miranda. Shane said it's only for immediate family. Yeah, I think immediate family is your dad, Shane. I'm glad the little conversation with Jessica about playing squash made him see things more clearly, though, and the ending to that arc was better than the beginning. I love seeing more of Lisa. I actually wish we had seen more of Lisa working at Fairfield. You can see from today's episode that Lisa's character has so much more to offer, and Fairfield gives so many opportunities for storylines. One thing though, we know Jack is superhuman, But how quick has this recovery been? Some people might not agree, but I didn't really see the point of Caleb being in this episode. All he did was provide a way to get Jack to the bar originally, but that could have been done another way. Just seemed a bit of a waste as he has nothing else to do. Lou, what can I say about Lou? Well, I actually loved Lou's scenes in this episode. I loved how it showed her strength and vulnerability, 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 vulnerability at the same time. Just go with that pronunciation. I'm not doing it again. Anyways, just like we all know what looks like strength on the outside doesn't mean you have it all together on the inside. Probably my favorite Lou storyline season in this episode. I'm hoping now the stroppy teenage angst is over with for now with Katie as it's dragged on too long. Hopefully now she will see how lucky she is to have Lou as a mother. Rick. Aw, the phone call for the adoption news was so sweet. The excitement and the nerves in Rick and Lou there to support him. Just loved it all. Rick in the kitchen too. Was the food he served edible? But my question on the Maggie storyline. Since when did Maggie's have that many staff all working on one day? More staff than Maggie's has ever had, but it wasn't enough? Also, did catch the stones being turned over on the table when Amy, Edwin, and the girls were doing their rock drawings, delivered plain from the oven from Amy, slightly flipped over the pre-drawn side for the end of the scene. Then Nina commented to that. I see how if Shane and Tim are just now reconnecting, he wouldn't be considered immediate family. Tim has had no part in raising Shane for the past 10 years. They're virtually strangers. But I was really glad when he did come back and invite him. His reasoning about Miranda also made sense, and while I don't think he needed to be concerned about it, it was bound to be brought up. To which Lisa replied, Tim is still immediate family regardless, as that's what immediate family means. Partner, parents, siblings. Better wording was needed to determine what was meant as Tim is still immediate family. Shane just didn't want to upset his mother, who I never liked anyway. LOL. Also, Tim speaking about his wedding with Jessica, like, I wonder if there's part in Shane that feels like, oh, well, he didn't invite me to his wedding, so I guess we're even. Like, I doubt he's like mad about that, but maybe there's part of him that thinks like, I'm never gonna get that experience back, which is kind of a bummer. But at least we're connecting now, because I doubt that back when Tim and Jessica were getting married, Tim even thought about inviting Shane. Obviously we know now that it probably would have been awkward and Shane would have probably declined because they've barely been in contact. But, at the same time, I still feel like so much more could have been done with that Tim and Jessica wedding episode, and sort of bring out those little moments where we see more behind the curtain before the actual wedding takes place. Then No Context Heartland said, I love the Tim and Shane storyline this episode. It was nice to see them overcoming a big hurdle in reconnecting, and the arc across the episode worked well. Jessica being there to help Tim kind of talk some of it through and be a factor that pushed Shane to really trust that Tim wants to be around was great. And I love that Tim and Jessica are the best and most stable relationship. Wow, I love them so much. As is predictable for me, I loved Lou this episode. Don't I always? Not the point. I like that she snapped back with Katie, as I felt like she had been sitting back and taking Katie's poor treatment of her in a way, and it was sorely needed. Plus, for them to get some resolution finally before Georgie comes back, so hopefully Georgie's return won't be all about solving Katie and Lou's issues. Also love to see Lou and Rick scenes in the diner, and oh my god, Rick and Carl are getting their baby. The angry stable manager turning out to be Lindy's best friend's dad was fantastic. I wonder if they will carry that storyline on or what the plan is. From the mention of him nearly going to the Olympics, I could see him perhaps being a factor in Georgie's arc when she returns next week. Also, loved Lisa getting some moments to shine in this episode. No complaints from me. Yeah, I think you guys are bringing up a good point about Edwin possibly playing a part of Georgie's storyline. It's in some ways because we know that he's also going to be in the next episode. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how they'll do all that or if that even happens. But I don't think it's just random that he used to be someone who sort of understands what Georgie might have gone through or is going through. So, yeah. Then Stephanie said, I really enjoyed this episode. Chris Potter, as always, did a wonderful job directing. I always enjoy his directing style. I absolutely loved how involved Lisa was, and we got to see her working with a horse. I did think the plot of the horse faking a limp was a little far-fetched, but that's Heartland sometimes. Regardless, I hope we can see more of Lisa being involved at Fairfield or writing again. I also love how we got to see Shane again, and we got to see Shane and Jessica interact. I thought it was such a sweet moment how Jessica expressed to Shane how much it means to Tim they're reconnecting. I'm glad in the end Shane invited Tim to his wedding. That's definitely something he should be there for. Jack and Katie singing together along with Amy at the end was really sweet moment. It was fun seeing his granddaughter and his great granddaughter all singing together, and seeing Jack going back to his country singing roots. As for Lou and Katie's storyline, I really hope Katie being distant, cold towards Lou has finally come to a close. I understand that kids and their parents have struggles from time to time, but I feel like this plot has been dragged on far too long. I hope we can actually see them become close and Katie actually tries to form a relationship with her mom. Also, shout out to Rick for working his butt off in the kitchen. That is not an easy job. I would love to see him working at Maggie's again. Then MC Loves Heartland said, this was a bit of a slower episode, but I still really enjoyed it. I would have never thought of Platinum Bow faking an injury. I'm not even sure if that's something horses actually do. It was kind of funny, to be honest. I liked how it gave Lisa more time to bond with Bo, and we got to see her ride a horse. It was interesting to see it play out. Definitely different than a lot of other horse stories we've seen. I'm so glad that Lou and Katie finally reconciled their differences and made up. The scene in the diner made me tear up. It was just so sweet. And that interview, wow, I don't think any of us, or even Lou herself, was expecting it to go how it went. I liked it. It showed that Lou is normal and isn't a superhero who magically has time for all her responsibilities. It was nice to see her be vulnerable about it. I'm so glad we got to see Shane again. I was thinking the storyline ended in episode 5 or 6, don't remember which one. It was nice to see him interact with Jessica and that she helped him realize that Tim is trying really hard. It's awesome to see Shane being successful in his job and getting married. I hope they continue mentioning and showing him in the future episodes and seasons. It seems like they're trying to make Rebecca's dad a future love interest for Amy. He was so flirting with her, especially with the Heartland logo painted on the rock. I think this is the first time Caleb had ever mentioned his family, and I'm here for it. Seeing Lou support Rick in his adoption of the baby was so sweet. Based on the photos and videos that have been shared about the event that looks like an introduction of the baby, it looks like Celeste will be their baby until they find an actual actor for her. I love the ending. I love all the musical moments of the show. My only complaint regarding that is why Amy stepped up to sing. We've seen her sing so many times that I really wanted it focused on Katie, especially since it's her poem and it seemed like that's what they were building up to. Bay did seem like she was having a lot of fun though. Overall, great episode. And then they added, oh, and I also noticed how weird it was that Lindy wasn't there to see Jack, Amy, and Katie sing. She probably wasn't there because it was a bar, but it still was kind of a weird she just disappeared. And no one could have been watching her because they were all there. Yeah, I was thinking about that Lindy thing as well. Like, was she on a play day? Like, what was happening? I know she disappears from time to time, but It's always a little weird when she just goes poof. Then Sharon said, "Good to see Shane and Tim together and Jessica giving Tim great advice. Tim's squash outfit, LOL. Tim being patient isn't one of his strong points. Not being invited to Shane's wedding obviously hurt, but Tim didn't invite Shane to his wedding either. But it worked out in the end. Amy solving a horse problem has to be her. I mean, which vet are they going to call? Ty's dead, Cass has moved away, and where's Scott? Not going to jump to conclusions about Edmund. Will we wait to see how that plays out in episode 14, 15, season 17? Lou has said before that she's not that strong, but her family is. Guess no one in her family was listening. I'm glad Lou told of Katie, a mother can take only so much. During her interview, I actually cried. Hopefully, the Lou haters appreciate her just a little. For not having enough staff, they were standing around doing nothing. Lou was right. Katie and Parker were being selfish. Thankfully, only Jack could make Katie see Lou's side. Rick is breath of fresh air for Heartland. I love his character and how he and Lou play off each other. Caleb and Amy, no. They will always be great friends and only friends. I was hoping that with Amy singing with Jack and Katie is a sign that Amy will actually have a conversation with Katie, but that's not going to happen with Georgie coming back. Damn, only 2 episodes left. Bring on season 17. Then Tim Heartland said, I enjoyed the episode. I think it was nicely done. The winter scenery was beautiful. It bums me out that the season is coming to an end. Really loved the Tim and Shane storyline. I was hoping to see him again after New York. Tim in a squash outfit, hilarious. Loved Jessica's reaction. I have the same reaction. I would have loved seeing him play. I'm glad Jessica had a scene with Shane and made him realize how important their reconciliation was for Tim. Again, great character development on Tim's part, accepting Shane's decision even if it made him sad and disappointed not getting an invite for his wedding. I did feel for him when he went up to his hotel room. Glad Shane changed his mind. Still wondering whether Amy and Lou kept in touch with him throughout the years. Loved seeing Lisa on a horse, but Bo faking an injury to get Lisa's attention is a bit of a stretch, isn't it? Animals are not that manipulative. Hoping to see Lisa more, and Fairfield would give more opportunities for great storylines. Lindy finally has a friend. Love that. Lou was amazing this entire episode and loved how she dropped everything to be there for Rick. Also love that Katie got to hear the interview and realized that Lou is doing her best in trying to be the best mom, a great mayor, and a great boss at the same time. The last Maggie scene with Lou and Katie was very moving. Loved it. And finally, the Katie and Jack storyline. I love the original song Katie and Jack practiced. I don't understand why they had to get Amy involved. I thought it was about Katie finding her path and her place in the family. Amy getting involved spoiled the story arc completely. Usually I like it when Jack and Amy sing, but not this time. This was supposed to be Katie's moment to shine, but instead she was pushed in the background. And Amy eyeing Caleb the entire song was plain weird and wrong. Just no. I'm looking forward to the next episode, seeing the teaser, but I don't want the season to end. Then Roy Sanders said, I thought tonight's episode was very weak. Same old storylines. It's quite obvious the writers are struggling with Mr. Cormier's loss as far as the script is concerned. The only good part was Katie's song at the end. I thought everyone did a good job with the harmonies. Katie has a fine voice. Then a story chemist said, I'm so very relieved the Lou and Katie storyline had a win for Lou at the end. I'm excited about Rick's adoption and that Lou dropped everything for him like a friend would. The Tim Shane storyline was a nice follow-up. While I love Lisa horse riding and her having more screen time, I do think they wasted it with this bow limp issue. Although a goodish horse story, but not so close after the Jack accident. It makes Lisa look as if Jack's accident hasn't affected her because she has shown more concern for Bo's troubles than Jack's serious accident. She was close to breaking down, a tad bad-tempered and stressed over her horse, which we all know she loves, but this after there has been no similar reaction after Jack's accident makes her look callous or indifferent and aloof, which we know she is not when it comes to her husband. What are they trying to do with Lisa? Jack seems all healed up in double quick time with no after effects, just like a superhero. So I guess the Jack's accident really was for ratings. No family dinner scene since episode 9 with Grayson. Wouldn't the portrayal of family time be important when a loved one was so badly injured? Did this seem like Jack rediscovering his country music roots? Because to me, it just seems forced to get Katie's song sung in front of an audience and to give her a surefire way into being characterized as a Fleming Bartlett through writing/singing like her bio great grandmother. Then Alberta Dream said, "That was a fabulous episode. I loved everything about it. Lisa got herself a very expensive horse, but hell yeehaw! She looks so good on that horse. Happy to see her having that connection to Bo. Hope to see more of them into future. The family band is just heartwarming. Sean and Amber singing is always the best. Also, very relieved that Lou and Katie finally made their way through the fight. Very beautiful episode." Then S. Davidson said, "Such an awesome episode. I love watching Shane and Tim, and especially the ending with Katie and Lou. I think you're missing a word here, but I'm just going to read it how it is. I also think music that they ended with Katie and Jack and Amy with the band with all their family there to celebrate." Then Selden said, "Wow, that was one Lisa heavy episode, and I loved it so much. Rick and Carr are having a baby girl. I hope we get to see her. Katie can actually be really sweet. I also loved Lou's honesty in the radio interview. It was also nice to see Tim and Shane connect for real at the end. Jessica is great. I loved all the little details like Lindy running to Amy when she came home. I also loved the cardigan Lindy had on. It reminded me of the one Amy wore when she was pregnant with Lindy. I think it's sweet that Lindy goes to rodeo school and has a best friend named Rebecca. Edwin just better not be Amy's next boyfriend, even though getting the besties together might offer them chances to hang out together. I just can't wrap my heart around that possibility just yet. Also, I kind of love that Katie is not a horse girl, even though everyone around her seems to ride. It looks like she might find an interest from music, and it is just as much in her blood than riding horses could be. Then Dip said, "I enjoyed all the storylines, but striking a balance will definitely be added to my list of favorite Lou episodes. This week we got horses, music, and two parent-child dramas. Starting with Amy, Lisa, Platinum Bow. Everyone was skeptical of Amy's theory, but since I know that my dogs and cats are capable of the trickery, I have no problem believing horses are equally sophisticated. Amy and Lisa's new stable manager butt heads. Relationship that start off badly and then turn positive as people get to know one another are interesting to watch. I'm curious to see where Amy and Edwin go next season, hopefully. As far as Lisa is concerned, racing Platinum Bow will be less stressful without the investors, but all the traveling she has to do has not been addressed. What I loved best about the Tim Shane storyline was its pure simplicity. It was 100% relatable. Who hasn't done things they have no interest in to spend time with someone? Also, with all the fractured families today, these are valid questions. What will happen if we invite both of them? Which one should be invited? By the end of the hour, there's growth in their relationship, no crisis required. The Lou and Katie storyline was my favorite. I admit freely that I crave those touchy-feely family moments that Heartland delivers so well. Also, finally an episode in which I recognized my hardworking, kind-hearted, and competent Lou. Lou has been trying to make amends for her diary fiasco and was the only one working to mend their fractured relationship. I was glad that she finally spoke up for herself when she told Katie that she knew the strike was meant to humiliate her and that Katie was enjoying hurting her. Note to Katie, nobody can lay a guilt trip on you unless you are already ashamed of yourself. Jack had primed the pump so that Katie was receptive to her mother's point of view when Lou revealed her own insecurities during her radio interview. My favorite line in the episode was when Lou says to Katie, "You really are good with words." Because their mother-daughter bond was repaired in the end, I will ignore how ludicrous the strike plot device was. Three supposedly normal adults are at the beck and call of two adolescent girls. Really? Can you imagine in real life that the experienced full-time staff would first risk their jobs, then return and simply stand behind Parker? I repeat, 14-year-old Parker. As she tells Lou, "I'll make sure that everyone gets up and running again." Good grief. Yeah, it's a bit unrealistic. Like, have them have school and then work at Mackey's almost with no time to spare for anything else. But guess we'll extend the reality with the show. It's just how it is sometimes. Then Dumb Burrell said, "My favorite moment was when, after all these years, Mackey's cook finally had some lines." I know. We still don't know his name, do we? Then Victoria said, "I love that Lisa had a lead storyline with Amy, writing and being a part of the solution. It was different for her character and added some flair, but the actual story was a little out there. I mean, can a horse really fake an injury?" It also made it seem like she loved that horse more than Jack. I mean, her getting upset, even in tears in episode 8, over this horse was way more emotional than leaving Jack or when he was hurt. I did enjoy Jack finally speaking up, stating that the investors were sucking the joy out of what she does. I love Amy standing her ground with the new stable manager. Were they trying to set it up like when Amy and Ty first met, producing some friction at first? I only see Amy and Caleb as really good friends and hope they keep that friendship going. I'm happy to see Lou has finally realized that she's overextended and helps the Lou-Katie tension. I do think it's sad we haven't met Carl yet. I guess we will see him and the baby girl in the last episode. I enjoyed the song they sang, but didn't understand Amy's involvement. I know Amber can sing, and everyone likes Sean and Amber singing together, but the storyline was Katie's poem. Maybe they can't sing or didn't want to solo sing with Sean, but they could have at least had a voiceover. I guess that's just my opinion. It was hilarious to see Tim in the squash outfit. It reminded me when he tried to play polo. Shane not inviting his dad at first was a low blow. I mean, Tim's really trying, and I'm glad that they used Jessica for that tie-in. To which Heartland Lisa BFC responded, "The Amy involvement in the song made no sense whatsoever, and also the fact the song changed so much from a few scenes earlier when Jack and Katie were practicing. I don't get where Amy's involvement came in. It was random, odd, and just made no sense whatsoever. I thought it was supposed to be a bonding experience too, with Katie and Jack. I'm baffled completely by that, and for me, it spoiled the scene because the end didn't match the build-up." Then Slishbear said, "This was a great episode, definitely setting the stage for a new era of the show in my opinion. I'm glad that Katie and Lou finally found some resolution and that it involved sacrifice and change for both of them. Katie selling the concert tickets and Lou admitting her imperfections on the radio with Katie listening was the way to go, especially since it would have been hard for Lou to say those things to Katie directly. I also appreciated the story with Tim and Shay, though I am sad we didn't get to see Tim play squash. He handled Shane's decision not to invite him to the wedding with maturity, though I am glad Jessica stepped in and helped to resolve that. I love seeing Lindy continue to grow, and how adorable was it seeing her bring a friend over. Two very positive trends in the last two episodes. Seeing Lisa in a different light and Amy finally being appreciated for who she is, not just for her family and what she can do with horses. It's about time. Hopefully, the support helps her keep moving forward. Looking ahead, the scene with Caleb and Amy was a bit odd, with him noticing the rings were gone and inviting her to his reunion. I really hope the writers are not going to try that again, at least for a while. Caleb has serious growing up to do before he's ready for Amy. Can't wait for next week and Georgie's return. The next episode is going to be the penultimate episode of the season, so episode 14. Wow, it seems like this season just went by so fast. And while I'm happy to see Georgie coming back, it's also going to be hard to not have Heartland to watch again because you always get kind of used to it airing on Sundays and that becoming part of your weekly routine. But we've been through this basically every year, so I guess we'll get through this again. But before we go into the finale talk and all that, let me just read you the description for the last episode of this month, episode 14. Amy helps Georgie rediscover her passion for show jumping. Lou's surprised when Peter announces he's moving to Heartland. A winter fair allows Tim to help Jessica and his rodeo school. So we'll talk more about that next week. And until then, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Bye.